The gates at the Jerez were locked. No fans, no flashing cameras, and definitely no leaked live timing. But inside the pit lane, a sound was echoing off the grandstands that didn't belong in the 2026 season. It wasn't the deep, earth-shaking thunder of the current 1000 monsters. This was different, a higher pitch, a sharper, more violent scream. Deep inside a debadged garage, a prototype sat on its stands, stripped of sponsors, draped in raw carbon fiber. On the tank, a single name was etched. For years, the paddock whispered about this moment. They said he was too old to switch. They said his braking style only worked on him. They said he was chasing a ghost. But as the tire warmers came off and the Turkish sensation clicked the bike into first gear, the skeptics were silenced. This wasn't just a private test. It was a declaration of war against the status of GP. Underneath that fairing sat the future, an 850 V4 engine, the heart of the 2027 revolution. And wasn't just there to collect data. He was there to prove that the hierarchy of motorcycle racing was about to be burned to the ground. But what the telemetry showed after the very first exit sent a shockwave through the engineers that no one saw coming. To understand why this secret session in Jerez matters, you have to understand the crisis facing the premier class. For a decade, GP has been an arms race of displacement and downforce. 1,000 engines pushing 300 horsepower, aero wings that look like fighter jets, and ride-height devices that turn bikes into low-riders. It was fast, yes, but it was becoming mechanical. The 2027 regulations were designed to nerf the bikes to bring the human element back, a drop to 850, a 75 mph limit, 100% sustainable fuels, no more devices. The paddock feared the bikes would become slow. They feared the beast of GP was being tamed. But arrival in the garage changed the narrative. He didn't see a slower bike, he saw a more agile weapon. The 850 V4 is lighter, more compact, and demands a rider who can carry corner speed rather than just point and shoot. As rolled out for his first flying lap, the engineers held their breath. They were looking for a baseline. They expected a massive gap between this prototype and the 2026 lap records. Yet as the timing screens flickered to life, the numbers at the first split weren't just competitive. They were staggering. There was a second secret hidden in that Jerez garage: the tires. For years, the GP grid has been locked into the Michelin era. It's a tire that rewards a specific smooth front-end feel, but the 2027 era is rumored to be leaning toward a familiar name. For this was the ultimate home field advantage. He spent years mastering the carcass in World SBK, learning exactly how much squish and slide the tire could handle before it gave up. While the current GP stars would need months to unlearn their Michelin habits, was already speaking the language of the rubber. However, the dynamics of a prototype V4 are far more violent than a production-based. Tires provide immense initial grip, but they are notorious for their temperature sensitivity. 1 degree too hot and the performance cliff is vertical. Some insiders claimed that aggressive style would destroy the front in 3 laps. They believed his signature move, braking so hard the rear wheel hovers 6 inches off the tarmac, would be impossible on a prototype chassis designed for efficiency. But behind the closed doors of the garage, the mechanics noticed something unsettling for the rest of the grid. Wasn't fighting the tires, he was weaponizing them. By midday, the heat haze was shimmering over the Jerez asphalt. This is usually when lap times slow down, the track gets greasy, the grip disappears. But the 850 prototype seemed immune to the conditions. According to internal team sources on site, the lap times began to drop into a territory that physics. The current 1000 GP bikes at Jerez usually sit in the 1-minute 36s or 37s during a race. The engineers expected the 850 to be 4 or 5 seconds slower. The reality, the gap was reportedly less than 2 seconds. In the technical sectors, the rapid direction changes of turns 1 through 4, the 850 was actually faster. The reduced gyroscopic effect of the smaller engine meant the bike could flick from left to right with a flick of the wrist. It was a scalpel in a world of sledgehammers. Technical analysts watching from the service road noted that the bike used an incredibly aggressive aero package. Massive front winglets and a sculpted fairing kept the front end pinned down, compensating for the lack of raw torque. But it wasn't just the bike. It was the man, was carrying lean angles that looked suicidal. He was using the V4 stability to delay his braking markers until the very last meter. Yet as the sun began to set over the Andalusian hills, the most explosive detail of the test came to light, and it wasn't about the lap time. It was about who was actually paying for the fuel. Watching on a GP prototype is like watching a tightrope walker in a hurricane. There is no safe zone. He is a rider who thrives on the limit of catastrophe. In the Jerez garage, the telemetry told a story of extreme psychological pressure. Most riders build up to a fast lap, however, was hunting the limit from out lap 1. Crew members described his feedback as surgical. He didn't just say the bike was sliding, he told them exactly which millimeter of the tire was losing traction. This is the effect. He isn't just a pilot, he's a development engineer with a throttle in his hand. He was testing the 850's engine braking, trying to find the point where the electronics would interfere with his natural feel. He wants a bike that talks to him, and in Jerez, the 850 V4 was screaming. But even for a rider of his caliber, the transition wasn't perfect. Reports suggested some heated confrontations in the garage regarding the electronics mapping. Wanted less intervention, the engineers wanted to protect the engine. It was the classic battle between man and machine. And just when it seemed they had found a middle ground, a mechanical anomaly occurred that threatened to end the test in a shower of sparks. This is where the story takes a sharp turn into the shadows of paddock politics. Why was a BMW factory rider in SBK testing a prototype that looked suspiciously like a M1 Evolution? The rumors in the paddock are explosive. Some suggest that 2026 move to the project was merely a Trojan horse, a way to get him into the ecosystem so he could develop the 2027 weapon before anyone else. But there's a darker theory. Some insiders claim that BMW themselves are using this data to scout their own entry into the 2027 season. They are watching his performance not to help him leave, but to build a bike that will keep him. The tension is palpable. Every lap turned in Jerez was being analyzed not just by the team in the garage, but by executives in Japan and Germany. He is the most valuable free agent in the history of the sport, and this test proved why. He is the only rider who can bridge the gap between the old world of 1000 power and the new world of 850 precision. However, the most shocking revelation didn't come from the garage. It came from the rival camps who were watching through binoculars from the hills. The results of the Jerez test didn't stay secret for long. In the modern world of GP, information is the most expensive currency. Within 24 hours, the data had reached the hospitality units of KTM, and the mood was one of quiet panic. If an 850 prototype, still in its infancy, could come within striking distance of the current lap records, it meant the advantage of the established manufacturers was about to vanish. The 2027 reset isn't just a rule change, it's a total wipe of the scoreboard. Rival team managers are now realizing that they aren't just fighting a new engine capacity. They are fighting a new generation of riders who don't care about the heritage of the 1000 era. Left Jerez with more than just data. He left with the knowledge that he is the favorite for the 2027 crown. He has mastered the tire, he has tamed the 850 V4, and he has proven that his extreme style is exactly what the new era requires. The era of 1000 dominance is fading into the exhaust smoke of history. The beasts are being replaced by sharks leaner, faster in the corners, and far more dangerous. The shadows in Jerez just provided the first glimpse of the revolution, and for the rest of the GP grid, the clock is already ticking. But as the prototype was pushed back into the crate, one question remained. Was this final test, or just the beginning of a much larger, more controversial master plan?